Hello and welcome to the first Dung Game Talk. With me on stage I have Julian Mautner, founder of Still Alive Studios in Innsbruck, and Daniel Schmidhofer, CEO of Pro Gaming Italia. Each hero has an origin story, and I would like to give you the word, Julian, to talk how you started in the gaming industry.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, I'm a little bit shocked by the word hero, but let's keep that aside. How did we get started? I think it was about 12 years ago or something like that, where we basically had this idea of wanting to do a game, obviously, right? I mean, we were excited after high school, right? Like, oh, we learned how to program, we can do assembly now, and this is gonna be lifting us into the next level. And we were obviously playing a lot, and then we decided, well, let's make it into a game. And it started out very small, obviously, right? We had this first game, it was called Apocalypse, where you obviously drive an ape with a lot of weapons on top, and then you had a lot of fun. And yeah, I would say I made the mistake, because obviously I was the tech guy, so I made the mistake of creating our own engine, creating our own physics stack, creating our own networking layer, and so on and so forth. It all worked, but the game kind of never finished, which is what happens when you start with there instead of using tech that's already out there. But it was a good learning opportunity, and afterwards we used that knowledge to, grow in size, get some remote members in because we needed manpower also, since we didn't pay anybody anything, myself included, right? This was all happening in our free time. So keeping people engaged for a longer period of time proved challenging. And that was basically then when the actual decision happened, okay, that should we really try to make this a commercial effort?
Do you still remember the meeting where you said, now is the time?
Nah, it's more like this sapling that grows, right, and then starts taking over your brain and tells, yeah, who needs security, right? Just go for it. And yeah, well, this is how it then ultimately came to the point where I said, okay, screw my PhD, I don't need it. I go and focus on making games, right? And then we managed to win a small prize, which opened the door to a subsidy was a local subsidy in Austria, basically. And with that, we incorporated them to get the game to a state where we can show it off, right? And we managed, and that was in 2012, ultimately, to get it to a state where we could, make a trailer, make it nice, because until then it was basically code and looked ugly as shit. So after that, it looked slightly less ugly, and we then went to the Kickstarter platform and did a crowdfunding campaign on Son of Nor, which was our first official professional title. And yeah, gladly we were successful with that, right? And with that we raised our first budget of 150,000 euros to get the first game going. And that was the kickstarting moment, literally, to then grow the company over the years.
Then you launched into the stratosphere.
No, still here.
Okay, both feet on the ground. All right.
Cool, congratulations. Hello again. And it's a little bit older story, basically, where I'm coming from. So it was like, why did we start to go in esports or video game? It's like a merger of different things happening in my life. So basically, when I was young, so I was talking to you now 35 years ago, so Commodore 64, first Game Boy, and so on. Our parents, they provided us with those habits. And at the same time, my parents, they are super interested in the sports scene. So they are the father of the snowboard, they are doing the World Cups, World Championships, they have bicycle rentals, ski rentals, sport shops. And so they were always organizing sport events on one hand. On the other hand, we have been always playing video games. Also, they have been renting the arcades. So the arcades, the best thing in the day was you have been able, after the school, going to the shop, putting 100 lira, 200 lira, and then fighting against your friends. And then you started playing for some small money. And at the end of the day, you gained more money fighting your friends than you get from your parents, basically, in the week. And then one day you say, okay, why is stopping up here? Why can't I focus or fight against someone out there in another city, in another country, or whatever? And so the angle of the competition was born from that side. And when I was then at university in Verona, it was 1998, 1999. I started playing some more competitive Age of Empires. Of course, first ADSL connection was born and so on. And basically, I started with 64 ESDN. And I went to Korea to the first World Cyber Games. It was the Olympics. And I was part of the first national team of the Italian. And ended up in a quite good position. It was top 20 in the world, but it was not because I was good. It was just because I was super strategic, I was super precise, and I used a couple of bugs. So that was always super important also. But by the way, we came there and we played in front of 4,000 people. And when you started, it was 2001, and you need to, for us, you could not see what video games are. The first time you reached someone else talking with you on the same language, the same game, and you came there and you played in front of 4,000 people. There were children, they were not able to write and to read, but they played StarCraft. They did not have one TV channel for video games, they had 3 TV channels for StarCraft. They had a female Champions League with models playing StarCraft. They had their sports team inside their army for StarCraft. So it was completely overwhelming. And we came back and said, no, come on, let's do something similar, because we have seen what's happening in Europe, what was happening in Italy. And so even my children was born back in 2001. We came to university, we finished up university, and then we said, okay, come on, let's merge all the things together and try to start this esports company, agency company, and bring esports to gain maybe in 20, 30, whatever years, the biggest sport in the world. So there we started, and we're still alive and still going on. We did not reach, but actually I think esports is now number 2 after football, and in a couple of years we will reach also get on first place.
Perfect. And obviously each story has its villain. What was your first, what were your first hurdles in the professional game development?
That's a tough question.
Story.
Now I have to personify an evil in my life, or
if there is one, but don't tell names.
No, I mean, generally bureaucracy. Not that obviously it's needed, right? But at the time it felt like it was a challenge that at every corner where we just wanted to do stuff, there is some legal requirement, some obstacle to overcome that is annoying, let's say. And I mean, in retrospect, I understand how it is, right? It's fine. It's also not that bad. But I would have wished for some easier entry as a startup. Like incorporating a company is, in my eyes, needlessly complex and costs way too much money to get started, but it's needed. And then you have to obviously take care of all the labor laws and so on, which all good laws, but when in the beginning every 100 euros are super valuable, spending a couple of thousand for lawyers feels like, why? But I wouldn't call it a villain. It was more like a maybe unsuspected or me being too naive for the world.
But bureaucracy gives a good monster.
A nameless one too.
Nameless one too. How was the mindset for esports in the early 2000s in Europe? Did you run into open arms?
That was basically not the word esports back in the years. There was competitive video games.
Okay.
And it was something, it was there. And many companies and people, they wanted to start doing something in here, but they did not come from the computer scene, they did not come from the event scene. So they were maybe just seeing their opportunity and trying to grab out some money on easy kill. And they burned a lot of opportunities, especially in Italy, back around the years of 2000. And then, of course, we did a lot of failures. For example, Giga TV, we bought Giga TV back in the years with the ESL, we did startup and so on. And instead of going more into technology, like of the streaming technology, but it was, when we did in 2006, 7, 8, the first tournaments of the national championships, we had 100 Mbit of data. And it was in the TIS back in the years with the Brenner.com, and it was there 100 Mbit, and it was huge. So you needed to decide with Windows Media Player, do I give to 100 people 1 Mbit, or to 200 people 50 at 500 kilobit, or whatever. So you needed to split all that, and there was, of course, the technology was not there. It was so many things that needed to come up, and we were too early for this industry. So esports was not even born back in those years.
Okay, but that sounds more like the marketing aspects of the thing. How were your first, the tournament itself?
The tournament itself.
Or how was the first competition you organized?
I think we have been organizing in 2000 Terlan, in Terlan a LAN party, okay, just with friends. So that's our first approach. It was super cool, and but it was always fun. It was always being together, having fun. It was not that much about where to reach, because we did not have that aspect of getting a company with 50 people, 100 people in the company, but it was just about having fun and starting doing something innovative and bringing up to the people and the scaling. Of course, there were thousands of difficulties that we reached out. So when you needed, for example, someone of you maybe can remember the Inter Friday Night Games. That was from the ESL brand, that's the largest esports company in the world. It was an event on the Friday evening, like from the national championship, the best match of the week played offline in an event. And we needed to organize that on the Friday in Milan. And on Wednesday, we did not have the PCs. They were somewhere shipping out, and it was not the PCs, they were just the components, and they were traveling around Italy. And so at the end of the day, they reached Bolzano in the Thursday morning, and the motherboard, they had a wrong chipset on it. And so the new CPUs, because they were brand new CPUs, because you are always working with new technology that's not typical on the market. So we had the newest tech GPUs from Intel, but the motherboards did not support that chipset. At least we needed to go on the BIOS. Or just a stupid example. So all the day, all the evening, we were building up, we found the solution, came around, traveled to Milan, organized the event, traveled back again, 48 hours of no sleep. And of course, in the same evening, it was always Thursday evening to Friday that a new patch came out. So you had the tournament, everything was starting, and the new patch came out, and nothing was working again. Maybe
so classic LAN party.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but it grew you up. You learned thousands of things and pretty cool things. And if we are looking out there of what happened, because we found some solution Twitch is there because we had this kind of solution on streaming differently. Netflix is there now, Spotify is there. So there's so many things going on, like, coming up from our ideas. That's super cool.
Did it get easier?
Yes. Okay. From somehow, it's super easy.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's today, back in, yeah, it's completely different story, because the PC today is more like a console, and you bring up a game like League of Legends that's played for 20 years, or Counter-Strike's played for 20 years. It works on every PC in the world, and back in the years, there was coming the game out every year, and they always wanted to have the newest CPUs, the newest technology, the newest graphic setups, and you needed always to upgrade the RAM, the CPU, the GPU, and so on. And it was just working on that 10%, and you always, to have this esports scene, the best quality, you always needed to have the best quality of the CPU, and so it was super tricky. And today, everything is working on every PC because the power of the GPU and so on is so high, basically. But I think Julian can tell you more about this topic.
Yeah, how is it to write games for the newest technology?
Fun. I mean, I would say yes. In comparison, the GPU, the CPU, and so on are really, really powerful when compared to the 2000s or even 5 years ago. But we constantly struggle because we hit those limits. Because also in equal amounts, and usually even more than that, the expectation of the playing audience rises with the amount of computing power at your disposal. And the top notch is always pushed by AAA, right? They have budgets of, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 million for creating one game, and they can afford to squeeze every single ounce out of it and get that performance. They have performance engineering teams of 100-200 people that just take care of making sure it runs. I mean, for instance, if you go with COD, or if you go with Horizon Zero Dawn, or whatever of the new games, they really push the limit, right? And the thing is, that sets the quality bar for the rest of the market, right? They might be an outstander then, but take a year, and this is kind of become the new normal. And that is what then also affects us directly. Because then, for instance, if we do a simulation game, we are compared with Assassin's Creed, we are compared with GTA, we are compared with Gran Turismo. And our budgets are like 100 times lower, which is fine because the market is smaller and so on. It is still good, but in the player's eye, it doesn't matter. So we need to push our quality massively because those big ones do, but our performance optimization team is one person, right? And we have it for maybe half a year or a year, and then we need to get the same, not the same, we cannot achieve the same, obviously not, but we have to get into a range of accepting that is good enough, right? And that's where the trade-off comes from. So our games, for instance, don't run on the toaster that you have at home, right? Valorant does, which is amazing. I mean, it's kudos what Valorant achieved on a technical level, right? But our bus simulator will never run there, which is also fine. We cannot afford the amount that it would take to bring it there, or bring it to the Switch, which is basically a mobile device. So on the one hand, you kind of want to support the new stuff, right? Like, oh, ray tracing, RTXs are the new thing. I mean, a couple of years ago nowadays, but still, since they're not available, it's still new. So, so yeah, we kind of have to have ray tracing and this global illumination stuff, and ooh, very, very fancy, very cool, right? You put it in, and then you kill like 40% of your lower hardware base, right? It's a problem. So we then need to look at it at, okay, how can we preserve this 40% while still having those new features? And then it becomes to get tricky, right? Because you need to find a solution that fits it all and then turn off certain things. Of course, you could say, oh, okay, just turn off the ray tracing and you're done. Well, not that easily, right? Because if you turn off ray tracing, just as an example, and your game isn't prepared for it, the lighting might look shit because, well, it's supposed to work on ray tracing. And then, so it becomes immediately a problem of many versions or configurations that you hit. So every time we launch a game, it's like these first, probably a week, but 24 hours usually already hits you very hard. This first time where you release it to market to thousands of players, right? That's where like all the sweat pearls go down everywhere. Like, holy crap, what configurations are gonna be out there that just don't work, right? And you hope that your hardware testing and performance testing and so on was good enough to capture 95% of the use cases, because those 5% you can deal with. But for instance, our last release, Bus Simulator 21, there was a fuck up. We released, and then 40% of our steering wheels wouldn't work, which is like, shit. And that's a huge problem, right? And we checked them with testing, we rechecked our protocols. If we missed something, we didn't. That specific use case that apparently was a combination of old drivers, new hardware, in combination with that chipset would create that issue where it wouldn't initialize the wheel and then just not work. Yeah, awesome, right? So yeah, it's tough, but it's also cool. So I wouldn't want to miss it.
But how do you manage the limited time you have in comparison to the big studios who can push the boundaries, and you have to fit somehow in that system as well without killing yourself?
Well, there is still a huge difference. First of all, development doesn't scale linearly, right? Let's say a one-person studio creating a game is possible nowadays easily, right? So let's say that one person outputs 100%. If you put 10 times that person, they don't output 10 times 100%. They output maybe 10 times 80% or 70%. Then if you go to 50, you get maybe to 40%, right? You get to 200 or 2,000 like Red Dead Redemption or something like that, right? Then we're suddenly talking about an efficiency that is way lower. Overall, the output is obviously tremendous, and they are needed to achieve the kind of excellence they put out there, right? But that's one factor that is good, right? Our efficiency will just be way better. Second of all, a AAA title, I mean, look at it, it's humongous. There is not only the main game that keeps you engaged for hundreds of hours, or the achievements, the side things. Usually they have some kind of e-commerce thing on top, which has a huge list of features. And all these supporting systems create a product that is keeping, I mean, I know, for instance, studios that work for 2 years just on an achievement system that works platform independent and so on and so forth. And it's like 10 or 15 people just working on that. We would never have such a system in the first place. We would trigger an achievement and you get the blip, and that's kind of it, right? So there is lots of things that AAA have that are not expected by a smaller title, okay, which is fine. Plus, the quality level is not the same. And also on the quality level, we don't scale linearly. Whereas, let's say, having a humanoid character in a game that just walks and looks somehow okay, that's probably with a modern engine done in a day, let's say, right? And then you compare it to what Red Dead Redemption, let's take the same example, Red Dead 2 has in the game to get such a character, control, movement, and animation system in, that's probably a couple of man-years to get implemented. And we will not have that, basically, and it's okay. So, yeah, pick your battles.
Pick your battles. I have another question for you.
Poor
I'm sorry. Because in the gaming industry, as a studio, you always have a release date, right? How do you manage the time so the last 2 weeks before a release basically don't kill anyone?
I mean, first of all, that's a big advantage as well. Nowadays, it's kind of accepted by player audience that, well, games get delayed. So we tend to not announce the release date too early, because if we were, we would have delayed pretty much every game we ever put out, first of all. Second, I think the last 2 weeks are not going to be the problem, because we are working with consoles, right? And we are working towards simultaneous releases. So what that means, the last 2 weeks, it's already over. Because, because there is a certification process involved with every console, right? You have to submit your builds in order for them to check, is it fulfilling minimum quality requirements? There's long lists of requirements and so on. And these checks take a while. And to even attempt such a check, before that you have a certification QA run where you assure the quality and make sure it will pass that test, right? So it's probably about a month before release that you deliver your last build, right? And then it's fairly okay, right? Still, you can work on day one patches and so on, and we usually do, but the pressure, the harsh pressure, is lower. Still, reality is, at least at Still Alive, we're all very passionate about what we do. And I think that's fairly true for the majority of the games industry. So we kind of want to push out the best product we can. And no product is ever done. It's never completed, because there's always more you can do. You can add this little bit of animation there. You can add this additional player feedback, this other cool feature, whatever, right? So every single team member will want to add that little bit more. So we have obviously a company policy in place, because we want to be still alive in 10 years too, right? So for that to happen, we don't want to have people burn out on such crap. So we enforce that they're not going overboard with it. But obviously there will be some degree of extra time that is put in before release, just out of that ambition. Then we try to compensate after the release.
Thank you for the answer. A question for you, because I heard you have insane amounts of growth each year. How do you scale an event business?
You can scale generally a business when you have more specific tasks instead of having the superhero doing everything. So back in the years, you did the sales, the marketing, the project management, the social media, the production, screwing or holding banners and so on. You did everything. And of course, if you want to scale, you need to have more specific tasks in order that you can have also people coming from other industries covering easily that task, because if they need to learn everything, it will take 1 year, 2 years, whatever. And if you set it up, it's getting faster and easier. But it's still difficult to find good people to work in esports, because most of the people, they say, oh, I am a super marketing guy, oh, I am cyber and IT guy, oh, I'm super social media guy. And then they come to esports and said, okay, everything is different. And yeah, it's often easier to have gamers and to implement them, getting a social media guy, getting an IT specialist, whatever, instead of the way opposite. So having this gamer DNA, I think, at least for us, is essential, because only if you are a gamer, you can submit the quality and you can tell, because you have, at the end of the day, you have a B2C model, you have the consumer and the gamers, they need to be satisfied. And if you are not a gamer by yourself, you cannot imagine what they are going to love and what they're going to hate. So this, I think, is the most important stuff.
Okay. How does your recruiting work? It sounds you need very specific type of specialists.
It's super different words, actually. We are organizing, of course, in Italy we have a super big comics and games scene, like Lucca Comics, Naples Comics, and so on. And we are doing plenty of these events. We have, for example, on the ESL platform, we have only in Italy, I think, 400,000 registered users. And of course, we have admins there. So we have a lot of volunteers. They are stepping in. And at the events, they are getting paid. So we understand who they are, what they're doing. And they are still at first years of the university, just finishing for school or whatever, and they grow up, and if we are able to pick there, typically we always pick good, and on top of that, we have some headhunters if we need to find a job. We work with universities. There is a master in Milan, there is a master sport at Trieste. We work with the University of Bolzano. We try to hire the best people because we think only the quality of the people is the quality of the brand and the company by itself.
Okay, so you somehow found a way to grow your talent inside your system.
Yeah, and we try to grow up and to keep them alive with us as long as possible, because on daily business they get offers from Red Bull, from Adidas, for whatever, because some years ago it was maybe cool to work in a telco, it was cool to work some kind of companies, and actually it's cool working in the esports scene, because again, esports is that digital natives, as first movers, the technology adapter, early adapter, and companies like Spotify, SAP, Mercedes-Benz, and so on, they are watching into our industry and trying to gather their talents because they know these people, they are showing us the future.
Okay, perfect. And from a top-down view, how does South Tyrol live in that world, or does it even live in that world?
South Tyrol is... It absolutely lives in that world because actually with the digitalization, we don't need to be everywhere. So in pre-COVID, I was 2 to 3 days in the week in Milan, 1 day or 2 days in month in Rome, and another 2 to 3 days in Cologne or in Berlin. Actually, I think I'm getting to Milan twice a year. So it's super limited because we can do everything on digital. But what's super lovely, that everyone loves South Tyrol. So my customers, instead of me getting there, is they are coming here to have vacations, and so we can have some time together and not talk about business, but still do business. And
the good business talk.
Yeah, the really good high-level business talks. And so maybe in 1 hour or whatever, having also a lunch together, or offering them something, or bringing them to some attentions, or explaining them some of our business. I think this is a good mix, and we are leveraging this as much as possible.
Perfect. What would South Tyrol need to build more gaming studios?
I mean, to my experience, it starts with education. If there is some institute, like for instance, if the university here would pick up a branch for game engineering or game design or whatever, this would immediately spawn a startup scene. And that is usually a good start. I mean, for instance, if you look at Salzburg, which is also similar sized, let's say, right? They have the FH Salzburg, and that alone spawns a local gaming industry that also bleeds then to Innsbruck, for instance. Munich, Vienna, and so on, of course, are a magnitude larger, but compared to entire South Tyrol, similar sized. So I think that is a good start. additionally, if there's an incubator, that helps a lot. For us, we only exist because there was some kind of startup support. We didn't tap into any game-specific thing, but something where games could apply to, which is an easy way, let's say, for politics to get into it, right? Instead of saying, okay, we're creating this games-only fund, which takes a large step. I mean, like Bavaria did it, like Vienna did it, and so on. There is an easier way to say, okay, all creative industries or all industries that are tech-based or something like that. Then you have a good starting point. And I think there is some aspect of this already in South Tyrol that is, back in the day I looked at it, but I'm not up to date on that front.
All right. So it would need some form of outside help to push some people to do something.
Well, outside help, in my eyes, it's about the framework, right? Right now, if we compare European culture or even, let's say more specifically, the Central European culture to American culture, for instance, what a startup is and how it is perceived in terms of risk and so on, is entirely different. I would say the US are way more, let's go for it, yeah, let's create a business, and you have a business. If you ever made $1, that's already a business, right? And if you failed, that's not a stigma. It's something like, oh, nice, you tried, right? Whereas here, there's a more, I would say, historical fear about, oh, you give up security of an employment, oh, are you sure you want to try this? One reaction often get, how you deal with all that responsibility, you know? These are all these cultural roots that make it a little bit harder for an individual to, you know, overcome and say, well, no, I'm trying it. And if there's a framework that supports you with this, the step gets easier, right? There can also be legislation that supports you with it. I think Italy has also introduced this GmbH Light or something, which is a great step. Something like that didn't exist when we incorporated, and I'm not sure if I would still have chosen Austria if it was, because there it doesn't exist. But just these additional factors that make your decision slightly easier.
I think also I would like to add that it's, of course, the politics. They should view in it and see how the future will be, and where will be a workplace for the future, and how the future will look like for every one of us. And there they should concentrate and create this framework, support, and so on. But it's, of course, we can sit here, we can try to do everything, but it will change, hopefully something, but not sure that it will change everything. But basically, it's the politics. They need to decide how we will have the future for all of our people working. And so are we going to give more technology advice, or are we going to have just milk contributions for cows and whatever? It's super fine, but basically this is the war they need to take on politics size. And I think video games or general technology, of course, in a country like South Tyrol, Tyrol, whatever, where we have a quite high standard, we need to get even more inside technology, because that is the only opportunity to leverage our wage and our salaries.
Okay. How do you think concepts like Dung, also the game jam, are working in that system?
I think they are crucial, they are essential, because they are these eye-openers for everyone, and they can bring together industries, they can bring together consumers, they can bring together also the politics. And I think this is super important, to have this kind of eye-opener and to show what's possible and what's out there. Also about think big, not just about having like everyone is seeing gaming as a side business, as something small. Okay, they're just gaming, it's just something big. But basically, I think it's 20 years ago that gaming industry is larger than Hollywood and the music industry summed up. So we are talking about one of the biggest industries, the biggest entertainment industries in the world. And I believe that South Europe, general Central Europe, should invest way more into it, because actually we see Chinese investing plenty money on it, US market investing in it, Saudis investing in it, but Europe actually is completely out of business.
Okay, thank you. Now I would make a small round with some tips how to get started in the gaming industry, and afterwards I would open the discussion to the viewers. All right, so how do you get started?
I mean, my key advice, get started today if you want to get in, meaning there is a plethora of tools out there. There's a plethora of resources out there to educate yourself and get started making a game today. And then get in touch with me in 2 years.
Yeah, again, you just need to have the passion, and there's, of course, in the agency industry, esports is maybe a little bit easier to walk in. Even if I also think that in the publisher or developer, they need to have a marketing achievement. They have now community size, and of course, this big change from having a game coming out and focusing only on the day one release, and the year after again, and the year after again. Actually, with the change on free-to-play models, they changed completely the business model, and esports grow up by this change, because if we wouldn't have had this change for the game publisher or developers, esports were always something, an issue, because there were costs to maintain the server, there were costs to community, and actually it went into an opportunity. And so I think this is a big difference we have. And so there are plenty of opportunities for everyone loving games, loving this kind of entertainment, who wants to do something new, who wants to do something open, who wants to do something international, and just step in, try to send them their curriculum. We are super happy on our side if they want to sit in Bolzano, in Milan, in Cologne, in Berlin, whatever. But just giving a try and believe in your dreams.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
One question to Julian. You spoke about competing with AAA companies, AAA titles, picking your battles. I'm curious, how does Still Alive pick its battles? Do you do market research and it shows that, for example, the market is craving for a bus simulator, or do you go more by gut feeling and do the things you and your team wants to do, or how do you decide what projects you tackle and which not?
It's a combination of all of those things and more. I mean, for one hand, of course, market research is crucial. Knowing what is going on in the world, what players expect, what trends there are. Not all trends are applicable or reachable even for us. I mean, we will not compete with Assassin's Creed, we will not compete with Red Dead, which is absolutely fine. But there is lots of more niche, I mean, let's call them niches, which are smaller audiences that crave for particular things. Let's take the simulation audience. There is a couple 100,000 people that really like playing Bus Simulator. Would they ever be targeted by a big EA, UB, or whoever? No. A couple 100,000 people is a flop for them. For them, they need to sell 10 million, 20 million units, right? So they will never even cater to them specifically. Our games do. And that's why that specific audience then also realize, well, of course, we're not going to get AAA quality. We're not going to pay AAA quality. The price point is also another matter where you can differentiate. But we are getting something that is for us, and that works, right? So that's one approach. there is obviously also gut feel, because if you look at the trend today, you cannot say, well, now I'm going to start a game for exactly that trend, and then 2 years, once your game is done, you're like, whoa, well, that was so 2022, right? So that doesn't work. But you can try to look at zeitgeist, you can try to extrapolate, you can look at the big tech investments, where are things going, and try to guess or guesstimate where things could be heading to. And then obviously there is the component of where do you hold a competitive advantage. I mean, it's still alive, we have a certain capability in doing certain types of games, where we have a tech stack, where we have advanced of knowledge and so on. So somebody who would want to compete with us on those would be on the back foot from the get-go, which is our chance to be there continuously and continuously be winning over it. I can wait for the sirens to tone down. It's actually 3 minutes early, but okay. So, yeah, that's, from my perspective, it's a mix, as said. What makes sense from a market perspective, that's the outer framework. Then within that framework, there's still lots of things we can do. Then what makes sense that synergizes with our technological advantage? Okay, that makes it the circle even smaller. Then we can look at, okay, what can we think of that is graspable? Because if you come up with something that is so esoteric that nobody gets it, been there, done that, no, don't you worry, but then you won't have buyers, right? And that ultimately is still what you need, right? So after all that, there is then individual ideas, and from those we then try to gauge the market potential, usually also in collaboration with publishers, saying, okay, look at this pitch, what do you think, what would be your forecast, and so on and so forth. And from what it costs, what the chances are, gut feeling, market research, and all the components that get into it, yields an outcome that is either favorable or not to do it. And every time it's a gamble. But this business side of things might seem dry and anti-passion and so on. But I think, if you want to do this professionally, it's a necessary part that you look at. And secondly, I personally find it engaging, because you say, well, this is the framework within I need to be creative. I need to find creative solutions to this problem that will resonate with a lot of people and make a lot of people's life happier, which is super interesting, whereas it's like coming up with something creative in whatever is, I don't know, less enticing to me.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So the all of strategy in the gaming world, is it just something about entertainment? Maybe it could be over the entertainment for tracking different age people from different ages, different group types. Something's more valuable. And do you have any strategy about that, about the game companies? Do they focus in on that to follow some strategies, not game just for entertainment? Thank you.
Thank you.
For sure. I mean, the answers I gave before were for our studio, obviously, and I can only speak for our studio. I know a little bit of the surroundings, but obviously there are serious games that go very much into very difficult topic. There's games about awareness about, for instance, values like democracy, freedom, and so on. Papers, Please would be a good example. There is games that teach you other aspects, whether that is just coming from skill sets that you learn, like Daniel was mentioning before, right? If you play Age of Empires, you learn about history. If you play If you play even a shooter, you get at least spatial awareness and train your 3D skills and geometry skills. On a side note, that's not their main focus for sure. If you play Bus Simulator, all our things that we put in there are real, or you learn about traffic laws, you learn about how to operate a bus, you know how a system like that works. We call it transient learning, basically learn while you're doing it without focusing on learning. But it's spectrum, right? You can start with very little, where, I don't know, a game with very little focus on that would just be purely for fun and for the ridiculousness of it, up to super serious games where you discuss matters of the Holocaust or whatever, right? So it's a full spectrum, and I think there's a lot of companies on various ends of that spectrum. So gaming is ultimately an art form and an expression of culture, right? So there is obviously the purely entertainment part, and I would also agree that the entertainment part is the most mainstream. Like if you look at FIFA and so on, right? That is their primary purpose. But there is, in a surprising number of games, deeper messages in. I mean, if you look at any game of 11-bit studios, right, whether it's Frostpunk, this War of Mine, or so on, very, very strong meanings inside. If you look at, there is lots of, I call them feel-good games that are not violent or anything, that transport a layer of whether it's friendship, love, or whatever. The indie games sector is full of this because they don't need to serve the huge markets of everyone needs to be happy with it. So yes, it's very, very broad. For us, ourselves, we try to have a component of putting a smile on your face, in the sense of feeling better than you started playing with, and having a component of transient learning in our games, where you get something that you didn't know before without you actively getting that you now do.
No, I mean, even in the programming world,
Yeah.
how we can encourage students to do the game and also learning programming.
That there is, for instance, Exapunk as an example for a game that does exactly that.
So the parents, they're not worried that if their children are spending many times in games, but they're thinking that also beside the game, they also are doing something valuable,
Yeah.
and they're learning.
I think parents should play with their games. Parents should play with their children, right? And make sense and choose or help guide the selection of games that's being played, right? I find Minecraft an amazing game for every age, pretty much. And the amount of things you can do there is mind-staggering, and you can learn a lot, right? And there is many, many more like that.
We had this topic here before we were sitting and had a small talk around us. And basically, everything you're doing inside the community by itself, it's also something you can learn somewhere else. When you are playing actively, you are inside a group, you want to learn to be faster than others, so you watch into it, you create your strategy, so you create a strategy. If you play a game, typically the game, especially in esports scene, it takes about 20-30 minutes, so you can be concentrated for 20-30 minutes. Friends of mine, they have been professional StarCraft players, and they are playing some poker in their free time, but they're not playing on one table. They're playing on 30 tables continuously, so at the same time, because they have a brain like whatever. Of course, every one of the gamers, they are playing online, and so they speak at least 2, 3, maybe also more languages. They know about money, because most of the games, if there's something behind money, how can I invest my money earlier, later, more time, or whatever strategy, or anticipate the opponent. Or if something is happening, I need to rethink about my strategy. So there are so many different approaches in every game, but it's not just about the video game, it's about games generally. It can be from backgammon to whatever, and I think it's just a different approach on a digital side instead of having it on the table, but it's still by playing games you can learn something. And of course, with the digital part, there is an additional part you can learn on and you can bring on the table. Like mentioned before, the parents should play together with their children, because especially in sports scene, you cannot play with your child if it's 10 years old and you are maybe 60, or the grandfather with 80 or 70, he cannot play on football with the children, but they can still play Mario Kart together and have fun. So it's like something, a bridge between different generations, as also we don't have differences because of different genders, different ages, different, so there's that huge advantage of this metaverse, if you want to call it also something like, or this game industry that brings to the table. It's big, and it's actually absolutely not pursued from the mass market.
And about the economy part, how the games they are playing role about the digital currency? Is there any relationship now directly?
It can be. It's possible, of course, it can be. And again, the blockchain part, it's early adapter, it's technology and so on. Where do you find people knowing about this topic? Inside the gaming industry. Because those people, they are tech guys. And so, of course, there are actually games coming out with, just giving you an example for a tournament. Do you want to have, as gamer, a prize like a medal, or do you want to have your NFT? Is basically the first one who wants to have the NFT, because he wants to have his avatar in a different color, in a different price, and so on. So the combination about the value on a digital, it's about early adapters coming from the gaming scene, and then maybe someone else is also understanding it in a 3, 4, 5 years. Does it make sense?
Any more questions?
I'm sorry, I just arrived lately, so what is your suggestion for beginners? Some people like me also exactly about the moments. So we want to come to this technology world more and more, and how we should start. We should try to develop our skills. Exactly, it would be great if you mentioned some most important, how this industry guide us and accept us. And for example, do you have any planning for students? I think maybe before I arrived, maybe you mentioned, but unfortunately I lost the first session, but it would be great if you explain that how we should do our efforts at the start, and also how the companies, they try to accept new people, young people, and what is your plan?
May I give a short synthesis of the question for the viewers? Yeah. So basically the question was how young people can be interested in this industry and can learn about it, right? So I think for us, again, it's all about the talent, of the quality, and what we find is that we try to open us as much as possible. So super welcome, everyone wants to come in, and we have these opportunities, giving them a trial, giving them on the events, giving them learn-ups. And so step by step, there are also some master events we are bringing together, and we have also some bundles we are offering. So we also twice a year, we are paying from our end the master for some students that are coming up. So it's all about the talent of the people. So the important thing is having fun. They want to love what they do, because only there they can give this 100%, or hopefully also more than just this 100. And this is what we need to have this acceleration to the industry.
From my perspective, one of the most important parts is curiosity. Find what everyone is, or find what yourself you're curious about, and dig deeper. Just keep digging, and then there is various ways, whether that is educations that are available, or you say, okay, I'm self-educated, self-taught. works, I don't care about your titles. I care about what you as a person bring to the table. And then there's various entry points, right? There's, especially in gaming development, there is a huge variety of different disciplines. I mean, there's not just programming, right? Programming is one, maybe 20% of our business. Then there is art, there's 2D art, there's 3D modeling, there's sculpting, there is animation, there's motion capturing, there's voice recording, there's finance, right? There is tech art, which probably many of you have never heard even exists, which is basically a bridge between art and tech, basically bringing the art to life in a game. Then there is design, game design, and then game design also splits up in a plethora of different ways. From I design mechanics, I design the user experience, I design the UI, I design the narrative. There's all different directions. Then there's the whole sound department, right? About voice acting, there is about sound effects, there's music and composition. All these things all go into one game, and then there's still the supporting structure around it, from finance to HR and so on, so, or QA or whatever, right? So there's lots of ways to get in, and this is truly an interdisciplinary field, which is what I personally really like about it. So there is many ways in. From my end, find what you're curious about and dig. And once you're there, there is also lots of entry levels. We have internship programs, we have traineeship programs. You can enter as junior, you can enter as super senior. And then there is, for instance, in our company, we also split between, not everyone wants to become a lead position. So that's absolutely fine. There is the leadership path and the equivalent path for non-leadership and technical or field specialization, let's call it, whether this is design, tech, or whatever. So yeah.
For leadership, you have to start from technical ship. You can't be a good leader when you don't know what's going on, what's happening. That means, I think this is the reality. So I just thank you so much for your complete answer. Yes, I just was looking for that internship opportunities or something like that to guide us to find the path.
Yeah.
All right, then let's end the talk.
We have one more question from a viewer, I'm sorry.
One more question.
Yeah, one last question from a viewer from the live stream, which is also a game designer, a South Tyrolean game designer, indie mobile game designer who lives in Austria. His question would be, what's the most interesting trend in game development right now, and why? You can answer both.
If I cannot answer for the world, I mean, there is lots of trends. There's always lots of trends. There's not just one. I mean, survival is still strong. Survival games, whether that is on VR or non-VR or whatnot. I would say in games, the whole topic around blockchain and NFT is strong on the finance side, poorly perceived at the moment on the gaming side, which we shall see where that goes. Then there is trends with trading card games. There is huge trends around procedural generation and procedural narrative, whether that is Weird West or whatever games out there. There is the whole simulation topic is, I wouldn't call it a trend yet. It's a continuously growing niche. So yeah, it's a very hard question to answer, but look at the Steam market. That I would say is the better answer. Where can I find that information? Check out, open up your Steam and then look for tags and for what releases on what tags do well. There is good resources that try to aggregate these data already for you, like Game Discoverability Co. newsletter. That's a very good one I can recommend. Or you do it yourself. There's about 50, 60 releases a week on Steam. There's plenty of data you can get into and find out, and the number of reviews a Steam game has gives you a good indication on how much it sold. So with that, you can identify trends.
Not that much to add, basically. Of course, on top of the game by itself, it's maybe also think about, like you mentioned before, it takes at least 2 years to bring the game to market. So what is the gaming trends today and what will be the trends in the future? The trends may be different jungle, but also maybe different platforms or technologies. Like you mentioned before, it can be VR, it can be streaming. So think also about that. And yeah, like you mentioned, esports. I think esports depends more on the kind of game, on the kind of community, how you want to involve them, and how your business model is created around it. So if you want to create something that's based on the community, that's a continuous growth, it's maybe more linked to the blockchain NFT center, then maybe something like esports makes sense. If it's something like AAA title that's sold one time and then it's a continuous patch, and so maybe it's a different approach, there's not one answer that takes it all. So super difficult, and the bad thing is try to get vision what's going to happen in a couple of years and not what's on the market right now.
All right. Thank you for participating in the first Dung gaming talk in cooperation with the Uni Bz Fab Lab, as well as a huge thank you for your insights, Julian and Daniel, and as well as our sponsors, the Amt für Jugendarbeit, as well as Roto Blas. Thank you for being here.